I'm staring at 4Q320 with the lunar cycles. The moon repeats almost exactly like every 11 years. I have a chart where it's just 320, like on the equinox day, like what the full moon, all the moon phases are on 320 every year for like 200 years. And so it's about every 11 years where it'll repeat, like it'll be either like a 99% or 100% full moon on that day. So in the Dead Sea Scrolls, they'll have 6 years. So while that may be true, year 1 and year 4 are the same for those 6 years. It's not going to happen again, like perpetually in rotation, like every 6 years. It's the same moon phases, or every 3 years, because there is that divider day in the solar cycle between the years. However, like with the moon aside, if we just talk about the priestly cycles, so the priests would rotate in on day 1 of the week. And I was just looking at this, and I sent Jeremy something. Let me just look at that screenshot again. It is 4Q321, fragment 2, column 1. It says, the first month begins in the course of Gamul. On the 3rd day of the course of Maziah is the Passover. So, hold on, I'm kind of jumping. So Gamul would be 317 to 323. The next priest in would be Deliah from 324 to 330, and then Maziah is 331 to 46, and Passover is on 4-2, which would make the 3rd day of Maziah. So the only way to get 7-day weeks, 52 weeks a year, is if you add that divider day right after the 52nd Sabbath. And I'm not sure exactly like what they would do with this day. Maybe that's when they're consecrating the priests for the year. But then they begin their cycles again, beginning day 1 of the week. So that would be 317. And this is the only way to actually keep the priestly cycles intact, the way that they have it outlined in the Dead Sea Scrolls for the 294 years. Whereas if you add a week...
Is to use the divider day?
What?
Is to use the divider day?
Yes, that's the only way to keep it intact, because if you add the week, now you're adding like additional weeks into the cycle rotation. Wow. And so the people who do the intercalary week, they'll say, well, maybe all priests are serving for the whole week. I just see that as being really unlikely for an entire week. And that would significantly throw them off after 294 years. Like, you would basically have like 50 intercalary weeks added up by then.
Wow.
So it just becomes an even larger problem the longer time goes on. So I really think that the divider day is the way to go to actually keep the priestly cycles intact. And as far as the lunar phases, it may match it sometimes, but it won't perpetually match it. The moon cycles are they have a pattern to them, and they're like 5-6, 5-6, 5-6, 5-5-6. So they don't just repeat 5-6 over and over and over. They'll have a double 5 in there.
Where are you getting the 5-6, 5-6?
So like on the 6-year cycle for the moon, you'll have the full moon on the first day of the year, or in that first week of the year, the creation week. And then in year 4, you'll have the full moon within creation week. But then once you get to year 7, it'll fall around the divider day, and then it'll be out of line for the next, that 5-year cycle. It won't be correct until the next 6-year cycle starts. So it's like 11 years apart where you'll see that full moon fall on the equinox, or even you'll see it again fall within creation week. So it's just not something that can be followed perpetually, because it's going to fall out of line eventually. Yeah, we can't say that they determined their priestly cycles based on the moon cycles. It's debatable whether these were added in to the Dead Sea Scrolls just because of the popular calendar at the time, and they want the lunar calendar to be it. So these could have just been added in. Or if they were in, perhaps they're just trying to relate their information to the mainstream info at the time. Kind of like when I say, oh, Passover's on 4-2. I'm just relating it to the mainstream information that we'll all understand, where we all know that's really 114.
Thank you for clarifying, Marissa. I know that I've seen some people try to say that maybe the moon followed priestly cycles. I had no idea. I was just kind of going based off of what I've seen other people try to incorporate it as, and so thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome. The reason I have my book open right now and I'm trying to pen down something that will match with this is because we have Robert Villa from Gospel Worth Dying For. He's asked me multiple times, well, if you can find another 6 years that match up, then tell me. And it's because nobody else has put the 6 years of those lunar cycles together to butt up against what Gina has written. But I'm telling you, that will show up again and again in time, and it's not every 294 years like she's claiming. Her claim is that the years 2019 to 2024 is the first 6 years of a 294-year cycle, and these lunar phases won't repeat again for another 294 years. And
That's a lot of years.
Well, yeah, and my rebuttal to that is that, well, it's going to repeat because the moon does have a pattern to it. It won't repeat perpetually over and over. But I'm looking at 2030, and I know they want to see an equinox day for Wednesday specifically with the full moon. So that's what I'm looking at and wanting to pen it down to say, like, well, hey, these years also match up. So, you know, but also 1935 matches up to that. So I don't know. I feel like they make a stretch in there as far as the moon cycles, and they just lean on them too heavily when it's not really the moon that is reliable the way that the sun is. Yeah. So there was actually sorry, I'm kind of like hijacking your your chat, Jeremy. There was actually, hold on, sun. There was a thing from the Testament of the 12 that I wanted to read to you guys. Yeah, let me see if I can get that.
Definitely. Yeah. If you could go over all the Testament verses that prove the calendar again, I'd like to hear it again.
Okay. Yeah, there was one I just read specifically. I found it. I have a few different excerpts that I penned down. Now I could read them. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I could read all 7, or I could just read the one that I was thinking. What do you want, Katrina?
All of them.
Okay, so this is the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, and I believe there's 2 other texts in there. There's a PDF for it. I think the PDF is shared in the links part of Telegram that we have going.
Yeah, it's in the other group under PDFs.
All right, I just added it, just so you guys, if anybody wants to like follow along, you're welcome to. I just added it in the Yahad calendar discussion, and I have the page number. So the first one is page 257. And so, who can be found so foolish as, when he gazes upon the fabric of the heavens, perceives the splendor of the sun and moon, sees the courses and beauty of the stars, and their paths assigned to them by fixed laws and periods, will not cry out that these things are made, not so much by a wise and rational artificer, as by wisdom and reason itself. Same page, 257. But lest the assertion may seem doubtful respecting things which are not manifest to all, let us come to those things of which nobody is ignorant. Who disposed the courses of the stars with so great reason, ordained their risings and settings, and appointed to each one to accomplish the circuit of the heavens in certain and regular times? Who assigned to some to be always approaching to the setting, and others to be returning to the rising? Who put a measure upon the courses of the sun, that he might mark out by his diverse motions, hours and days and months, and changes of seasons, that he might distinguish by the sure measurement of his course, now winter, then spring, summer, and afterwards autumn, and always, by the same changes of the year, complete the circle with variety without confusion? Who, I say, will not pronounce that the director of such order is the very wisdom of Yahuwah? And these things we have spoken according to the relations given us by the Greeks respecting the science of the heavenly bodies. Okay, and then we have page 170 and 171. To this Peter answered, Since then you confess that you are ignorant, now learn. Your question demanded our deliverance on 2 matters that are contrary to one another. For every motion is divided into 2 parts, so that a certain part is moved by necessity, and another by will. And those things which are moved by necessity are always in motion. Those which are moved by will, not always. For example, the sun's motion is performed by necessity to complete its appointed circuit, and every state and service of heaven depends upon necessary motions. But man directs the voluntary motions of his own actions. And thus there are some things which have been created for this end, that in their services they should be subject to necessity, and should be unable to do aught else than what has been assigned to them. And when they have accomplished the service, the Creator of all things, who thus arranged them according to his will, preserves them. But there are other things in which there is a power of will, and which have a free choice of doing what they will. These, as I have said, do not remain always in that order in which they were created, but according as their will leads them, and the judgment of their mind inclines them, they effect either good or evil, and therefore he hath proposed rewards to those who do well, and penalties to those who do evil.